Viltrox just released their 25mm f1.7 for less than $200, but is it worth buying? I've been testing it for a couple of weeks on my Sony A7IV and the FX30, putting it through some sharpness tests, some autofocus tests, and some real-world use. But full disclosure, Viltrox sent this out for testing, but they're not paying me to make this video, and as always, I'm gonna let the test results and the sample footage in this video do the heavy lifting, so look at those and decide if this lens is good enough for you. This lens is part of Viltrox Air series, a series of compact and lightweight, minimalistic and still well-built lenses. The housing is made out of a high-quality composite, aka plastic material, rather than the full metal like we have on the older 23mm f1.4, but it still feels very well made, and the mount is obviously still made out of metal, and we get the same type of USB-C port for firmware updates like we have on the rest of the Air series lenses. There's no aperture rings, no dials or switches, so everything is going to be controlled on your camera. Up front, we have a 52mm filter thread. The lens also comes with a lens hood, caps, and one of these little drawstring pouches, which I really love. So great for just throwing it in your camera bag and you don't have to worry about things getting dinged up or scratched. And you always have some nice, fresh, clean lens wiping material with you. Win. Now let's look at autofocus performance. Viltrox autofocus have been pretty solid for a while, and this lens is no exception. Face tracking and eye detection works really well on both the Sony FX30 and the A7IV in crop mode. The autofocus feels confident with smooth focus transitions, there's no pulsing or any hunning or anything, and there's very little focus breathing, which is obviously great for us video shooters. The minimum focus distance isn't bad. The lens can focus down to 30 centimeters or about 12 inches. This is, by the way, measured from the sensor plane of your camera and not from the front of the lens. So you can get pretty close to your subject, which is obviously great for detail shots and adding that blurry background we all love. Now, what about sharpness and the optical performance? Well, the 25mm f1.7 has kind of a crisp, very transparent look, which is kind of what you expect from these newer lenses. Very much in line with the rest of the Viltrox Air series, in my opinion. There's a tiny bit of chromatic aberration visible in some high contrast area, but overall it's well controlled and I wouldn't get too hung up on it. Looking at these tree branches shot at f1.7, you can see a tiny bit of green and purple fringing, but it's... For comparison, here's a shot with a 23mm f1.4. The 25mm, in my opinion, holds up slightly better, or not slightly, it just looks better, cleaner, crisper, and less chromatic aberration. Okay, I'll tell them. Now, before we take a look at the test charts, my advisor tells me that I should tell you that this here isn't the 25mm f1.7. It's actually on this camera, and we've been filming this entire video with it so far. This here is the 40mm f2.5 or something, yeah. But anyway, let's take a look at those charts. Starting with center sharpness, it's looking pretty sharp to me, and the corners don't look too shabby either. Of course, we can get some slight improvements, stopping down to f2, f2.8, 5.6. Well, you get the picture, but overall, not a whole lot to complain about. There's also a small amount of barrel distortion, but it's minor and easily corrected in post. Now it just feels weird to wave this thing around, so I'm gonna put it down here, but the 25mm which we're shooting on now is obviously an APS-C lens, and if you're wondering what it will look like on a full-frame camera, here's an example. Plenty of vignetting, so if you're planning on shooting on a full-frame camera, you obviously need to go into crop mode. In my opinion, you can still get a pretty blurry background at f1.7. I'm still super confused. So this is f1.7 on the 25mm, and this is the subject separation we're getting right now. I'm gonna hang on to this for just the sake of sanity. So you can still get a decent amount of background blur at f1.7, and the autofocus areas, in my opinion, are looking pretty smooth without any major distracting artifacts. Here's a quick side-by-side between the 25 and the 23mm at their respective maximum apertures. There's slightly less blur on the f1.7, but the difference, I don't know if it's super duper dramatic. And here's some more bokeh shots with the 25mm so you can get a better feel for how it renders out of focus areas. Feel free to let me know if you want to see a full comparison between the 23 and the 25 and maybe some other primes with a similar focal length. Now, manual focus and handling. The focus ring, still a bit confused, sorry, but the focus ring has a good amount of resistance and dampening. It's not too loose, it's not too flimsy like some budget lenses, which can feel a bit more like a toy or something. This one has a nice amount of dampening, making manual focus pulls really easy and precise. So here's a quick focus rack for you, or kind of slow and smooth focus rack, if I do say so myself. But who is this lens for? I mean, Confucius, Copernicus, all of those guys, they all had the same question, but I'm here to give you the answer. So if you're looking for kind of a 35mm equivalent for APS-C, this here is kind of a force to be reckoned with. It's sharp, the autofocus feels reliable and smooth for both stills and video. There's tiny amounts of chromatic aberration if you really push it, but in my book it's not really worth worrying about, especially with the price in mind. Now, if you already own the 23mm f1.4, will this be an upgrade or downgrade? Kind of depends on what areas or what things you prioritize. In some areas it will be kind of an upgrade. This lens, the 25mm, is still a bit confused, but yeah, the 25mm will be an upgrade in some areas. I think, based on my testing, that it's sharper, it's more transparent, more crisper and more correct compared to the 23mm, which I think has a tiny bit of character, which I personally appreciate. But if you're looking for a transparent lens, the 25mm will do a better job, which is kind of weird considering it's more affordable than the 23mm. But yeah, that's my 2 cents. Now, I'm eager to hear what you think about the 25mm based on the tests, on the sample footage and everything you've seen in this video. And I also want to give you a quick reminder that I've linked all the available mount options for the 25mm below, and sometimes there's a tiny little launch discount going on, so make sure to check those out pronto. And yeah, I guess that's it. Bye, which means poop in Swedish. Yeah.